Mahomes at bay.
The Tampa Bay Bucs, Super Bowl 55.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Bucs Banter podcast. It is Monday, so as always, we are live on Bucs Report. If you are watching this live, you are either on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Twitch. You may be watching on a Bucs Report page. You may be watching on a Bucs Banter page. The fact is, those minor logistical details really are not important. What is important, however, is that you've taken time out of your Monday evening to be here with us, and for that, we appreciate you. If you haven't caught us live, or maybe you have but want to listen to this episode again in the future, which may be excessive, but if you do, the option is available. You'll be able to stream the podcast version of this broadcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whichever you prefer. Just search Bucs Banter. Our YouTube channel conveniently goes by the same username as every other account we own, so please head over to Bucs Banter YouTube channel and subscribe. It helps us out a great deal, and we appreciate that as well. I am your host, Collin, and I am here with my two dynamic co-hosts. First, we have the guy with the best basketball tweets in the nation. His face is usually unshaven. The king of vegan pizza creations, Bo Danyard. And we also have the ultimate golf scrambler, the I'll bet on any sport gambler. If this were the Legion of Boom, he'd be our Cam Chancellor, Scott Capron.
Oh, well, hello to you, and thank you, Bowden. I mean, come on, how good was that?
Last week we didn't have that much sauce on these, so
Yeah, no
he's
kidding.
back with vengeance. Jeez, he had a little extra time to prep this week for sure.
And I think I actually have a similar golf game to Cam Chancellor, so that makes sense on a few levels. So perfect, yeah, very physical.
I had to make up for last week. I was off my game with the intro, so I had to reestablish the bar.
You're back. Number one in the power rankings again.
Mission accomplished.
Right on. And I think Legion of Boom would have been a good name for the podcast, for like a podcast that I was doing in hindsight. But the Seattle Seahawks affiliation just wouldn't work because this is a Bucs podcast.
Yeah, fair.
That would have been confusing.
I think it would too.
So today we're going to be actually continuing. Normally we don't do our division previews on the Bucs Banter show that we do live with Bucs Report, but it's a slow time of the year. Not much Bucs news, and I think today we're going to dig into the AFC North, and I think there's plenty of people who will be interested in what we have to say about this division as we dig into the players, the coaches, what happened last year, and what we think will happen this year. So I'm really looking forward to that. First, though, couple items I just wanted to touch on. I'm not going to do like a what's up with the Bucs because really we don't have enough Bucs stuff to talk about. That being said, of course, any viewers, any listeners, any questions related to the Buccaneers, we're going to kind of leave it up to the audience to determine how much Bucs we talk. So if at any point you guys want to bring something up, ask us a question, we'll be happy to try and find time to address as many of those as we can. One thing that we haven't talked about, Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes will share the cover of the new Madden 22. I'm no gamer. Bo, you got any insight on the recent injury history of Madden cover players? I know we had an ugly trend going for a few years there.
I don't know about injuries. I feel like that curse has been broken in the last few years, but a lot of flack back coming from the gaming community that Aaron Rodgers, as they're talking about GOATs, they don't even have the current MVP on the cover. I don't know. This is a Bucs podcast, but they're saying Aaron Rodgers isn't getting any respect.
Well, he's got as many Super Bowls as Patrick Mahomes. I mean,
I think they're having a tough time also not knowing what jersey to put him on if he was on the title. So
true.
That's going to be it's a tough look for the Green Bay Packer fans, and this is just another reminder of the flux that their off season is in, and the reason why we're not going to get to the NFC North probably until right before the season starts, just because we want to know what's happening with Aaron Rodgers. But
yeah, the biggest Madden curse, I can't remember. I haven't played Madden in about 12 years, but you remember when Sean Alexander had the unreal year for Seattle and then got hurt like immediately after, and then I think there was, I could be wrong, but I think Peyton Hillis was on the cover after the season with the Browns he had, and then he was like stocking shelves or something a few weeks. Like it was literally something like that. Like totally nuts.
I'm not sure we can blame the Peyton Hillis one completely on Madden, but the Sean Alexander one definitely sticks out to me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Peyton Hillis is in the commercials for this new Madden. I'm pretty sure.
There you go.
I think you can blame EA. It's an EA game, right? Like, is that? You could blame EA for the Peyton Hillis one. I mean, that's just jumping the gun there. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, did they have to meet their quota for like Caucasian cover guys or something? Like, what else?
They saw an opportunity. Like, this is gonna be perfect.
Yeah.
We can
No
reel in
kidding.
a lot of people that watch Fox right now.
I
Scott,
really go ahead.
if you put on like 100 pounds, you could pass for Peyton Hillis.
Yeah, well, that's the goal. I've been on that Peyton Hillis regimen all quarantine. I'm trying. I put on 4 pounds, so I'm getting there. So let's 96 to go, and I'm looking for that cover. Sorry, quick aside. Isn't EA Sports, it's in the game, like part of the soundtrack of our childhood? Like if you had to pick little sound bites, like that's literally one of the things. Considering I don't know, I like literally just played sports games. I know that's probably shocking, but that was for every single one.
Yeah, that's like one of the sounds that I could hear that would like literally induce my mom to scream at me. So like you would like hear EA Sports is in the game, and then you would hear Rosita just scream at the top of her lungs.
Not having it for sure.
Bo, you had an ultimate like gaming media setup for a young kid.
Yeah,
I remember.
We had a lot going on. A lot of Hot Wheels, a lot of TVs, Nintendo 64. Yeah.
Oh man.
You had a great setup.
There.
Now, some big news that broke like an hour ago, and that is former Tampa Bay Buccaneer and current Oakland Raider Carl Nassib came out as gay on his Instagram today, and he is the first active gay player in the NFL, and he's certainly not a nobody, as Bucs fans know. He filled in really well on our team, but I just want to like applaud him. I think that's amazing and awesome and a super important step in a lot of ways, and I just want to give props to him. I'm sure that was really tough to do. Currently residing in a professional football locker room to do that, it's unreal.
Fantastic. Sorry,
I love that.
it's just such a huge step. Every person who comes out is making it that much easier for the next person to do it, and normalizing it in the NFL as much as possible, and throughout society, obviously. But to see it in the NFL, especially, that means a ton, and just great for him. And I hope I didn't read the entire story. I don't know, exactly how long you'd been considering coming out publicly or anything like that. But hopefully, he's out there now. He can go on with his life, and teammates and organization can support him, and he can continue to have a great career in the NFL.
Amen. Well said.
Just looking at his like the way that he came out and the way that he like the words that he used, it seems like a lot of people in the league probably already knew, and it's unbelievable to see where the NFL has gone from a societal perspective, like in the last like even 2 to 3 years. Obviously, Colin Kaepernick had to lose his job for that to happen, but they're definitely moving in the right direction at least right now. So not a lot of feel-good stories society-wise in the NFL in like that we can just easily come to, but this is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, well, on that, like, there's no pressing Bucs topics or things. We hit it pretty hard last Monday with everything going on with the Bucs. There's been no off-season activities since then, and no real news. So I'm gonna make the executive
Brady
decision.
Quote from the shop today.
Oh, I know he's gonna be on the shop. What is it already like aired?
Well,
Is it?
Yeah, it's already out there.
A little bit of it leaked. The episode hasn't aired yet, but a little bit of it leaked where he didn't name the team, but he's talking about, towards the end of free agency, another team kind of decided to pull shoot on the recruiting and going for him. And he's just like, I think the quote was like, you guys are going to stick with that MFer instead of me. And now like everyone's buzzing about it. Like, oh, it's the Niners. Like he was coming for Jimmy G and all this stuff. And they're trying to determine who he's talking about. So like, that's pretty good stuff.
That's wild. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe we can just jump on that? Like, what team do you think it would be that was in it and then just decided, no, we want to stick with this quarterback?
Like, it couldn't have been the Chargers because all indications were they were right in it till the end. So obviously it's not them, right? Like,
Yeah, no, it can't be the Chargers. Like Rivers is already gone. Even if it was the Chargers, they would have been happy to bring Brady in to have Herbert learn behind Brady.
and the Niners had just paid Garoppolo in all like reality, right? So
Yeah.
a pretty significant deal. So you got to imagine it might not have been them.
I'm wondering, hear me out, and I feel like I always bring this team up, but the Raiders. You think it's the Raiders?
Yeah, Carr.
He's like that middle tier quarterback with varying opinions on him. So that could be like, you know, he's saying they chose him over.
Just bad enough for Brady to be like, you are insane.
Yeah.
I'm sure Brady thinks that about every quarterback, but
Am I
he
missing?
must.
Am I missing an obvious candidate from last year that was right in there? But like, is there someone that I'm just drawing a complete blank on? It's like, oh no, it was very close. It was Tampa Bay or this team. Like, I feel like I'm like, it could be the Bears, right?
No. I think honestly, like when like we went through it last year when Brady was kind of narrowing it down, it came down to the Bucs and the Chargers pretty quickly. And the Chargers was much more of a I want to live in LA type of thing. But maybe like it might have been the Rams too, honestly. It might like can you imagine if McVay said I want to stick with Goff? Like he got us to a Super Bowl?
Could be the Rams. Johnny Dean, shout out Johnny Dean. He shared in the comments, at least for those of you on Facebook, the link to the little teaser from Carmen Vitale with the Bucs, the HBO teaser that we're talking about right now. So you can see that if you're watching on Facebook. What's up, Christopher Cole, Peter Staley, the Professor? We got some people in the comments. Nice to have you guys with us. If there's anything else that jumps out at you, feel free to drop it in there, and we'll try to address it. Other cool thing is, I don't know, Bo or Scott, I was going to send it to you guys, but I feel like you've done a great job handling me inundating our group chat with like various Buccaneers stuff. So I'm trying to kind of play it cool and not come across too strong. But the Buccaneers have done like their own, it's not Hard Knocks, but it is that kind of style of like a little behind the scenes documentary that they're releasing from last season. It's called In the Current. And I think there's going to be 4 or 5 episodes on YouTube or just from the Buccaneers.com website. So I watched the first one. It's 30 minutes. Really cool. Really well done. And I'm pumped to see the rest of it as the season goes on. So just figured, check that out, boys.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Yeah.
And anyone else who
for anyone that's unclear, like we are NFL fans, but we're not Bucs fans. And Collin has been on a heavy recruiting trip for us to join the Bucs Army, but we've resisted so far.
But now, like, I just like how you guys are the unbiased perspectives to have on this. So I would almost rather you guys stay in your current zone. I mean, you've gone far without a like. Okay, obviously, if you guys jumped on, I'd be like, choo choo, like all aboard. But I'm just saying, it's kind of nice to have you, because if I throw an idea or a claim out there, you guys will put me in my place if I'm way off and I'm being biased. So I like to have you guys here to keep me in check and to keep our viewers in check as well.
Yeah, but it works out great because it's like we like talking about all 32 teams, but we especially like to get to talk about the defending champs and also a contender going into this year. You know what I mean? Like they're super relevant as well. I mean, 3 of us could probably talk about any team and still enjoy it, just breaking down rosters and stuff. That's why these previews are so good. But the Bucs are interesting, and I had to get a new phone after Collin sent 82,000 pictures of Ronald Jones trying to catch a pass. But it's worth it, and it's been super fun. So here we go.
Yeah, it is just nice to have kind of have the pulse of a fan base as well.
Yeah,
too.
for sure.
So you don't really get if you're just like a floating NFL fan, you don't really get the chance to interact with the the different Bucs fans and the different fan bases around the league and actually get an idea of I feel like this year more than any other year I'm gonna know exactly how Bucs fans are feeling on a play-to-play basis. So it is cool, but the recruiting has been relentless, but we appreciate it.
Well, I can't wait to do this show Monday nights during the season. I'm already super pumped for that because that's when having the audience and the fans chiming in is going to be just unreal.
I can't wait Monday nights too to do a segment about our Razors picks and how badly we got screwed and how it should have been a 4 out of 5 week and it's a 2 out of 5 and how we're calling for coaches to be fired because they didn't cover and I don't know. That might take up a substantial chunk of time.
Yeah, we may need to go twice a week during the season. We'll definitely make sure, however long we have Scott Capron, we will make sure we have time for you to talk gambling.
Oh, thank the Lord. Yes, please.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get right into the AFC North division preview, boys. This is a fun one to do, so I'm looking forward to it. We've kind of gotten some of those divisions with lesser intrigue out of the way. So we can do this one right here on Bucs Report. So Cincinnati Bengals, that's a team I want to start with. Zach Taylor, their head coach, heading into his third season. 4-11 last year. They obviously lost Joe Burrow in his second NFL season early in the year to a torn ACL. So they finished fourth in the division, obviously, with a 4-11 record in a really good division. So no playoffs for them.
Don't forget that insane tie against the Eagles.
Oh, true. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, 4-11-1. My bad.
Also, they didn't lose Burrow all that late. They lost him week 11.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
10 games.
Yeah.
Oh.
It was, it's interesting. Burrow.
Yeah, it was week.
I don't know. We love Burrow coming out of LSU, right? Like.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a huge Burrow guy.
Yeah, I feel like you were very big on Burrow when we were talking about the draft back then. But, yeah, that I think Zach Taylor, another Sean McVay alum, the coaching tree just grows. But 6-25-1 in his first two seasons. So this is going to be one of those big, like I could see if we were talking, I think we were talking about hot seats like this. I don't know if this is one of them. They obviously are committed to their rebuild and revamping their team. But, it's a tough spot for Zach Taylor, that's for sure.
I think they're going to be good enough to take him off the hot seat. I don't think they're going to be awesome or anything, but just for some context before we really get into the roster stuff. So they were 2-7-1 with Burrow, and they were 1-5-1 in their first 7 games. But here are their losses. They lost to the Chargers by 3, the Browns by 5. They tied the Eagles. They beat the Jags. They got killed by the Ravens. That's okay. They lost by 4 to the Colts and by 3 to the Browns. So they're 1-5-1 in that stretch. Pretty easily, 3-3-1 there, right? And then that's such a huge difference. Like a one game swing is such a massive, like losing having a tough loss. It obviously limits your ceiling now much more. Like you can't just. It's hard to just get it back. Like you can't just really get hot in the NFL as much as you can in other leagues, right? Where you can string together wins and confidence like that, right? Because you only get to play once a week. So I'm just thinking, like, I remembered that they were definitely bettable in those first 7 weeks, and I got to think in those first 7 games they were probably like 5-2 against the spread, considering how close those games were. Yeah. But 3-3-1, Burrow's, and if Burrow stays healthy. Like a 500 season last year isn't out of the realm. They were 4-11-1, which isn't good, but it's also not like 2-14. There is a difference, right? So I don't know. Just for context, so people can kind of remember where Cincinnati was at last year. Before we talk, really get into the roster now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they got to play each team in this division twice. Like that in itself is such an uphill battle, man. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean?
You're probably underdogs in all 6. Maybe you're favored against one of those teams at home, depending on the schedule. But even if you are, it's less than a field goal, right? Like,
yeah. And I mean, they've obviously got young, talented skill position players, and they should be able to put up plenty of points this year, even with questions remaining about their offensive line. They do have they have assembled like 3 solid offensive linemen who I like. But like I said, they have one of the best young quarterback prospects in football, so that's always a great place to start. But they do have a ton of holes. And on the defensive side of the ball, especially, like losing Carl Lawson and William Jackson, those are 2 really good players at important positions. Carl Lawson off the edge, he's a New York Jet now, and William Jackson has moved over to the NFC East. He's with the Washington football team.
I think it's pretty clear they're going to have to outscore people.
Yeah, right? For sure.
But I I think it matters that if you really know that going into the season, right? Like, if you know you got to score 35 each game, then Taylor can coach accordingly. Because I don't know, we see it every year how conservative some coaches are, not trying to keep scoring or like put the foot on the pedal. They're going to have to because their defense is not going to be that good. But take a look at who they have now as like the offensive weaponry here. I mean, if Jamar Chase is amazing, let's say he's sorry to make the one-to-one LSU comparison with Justin Jefferson. Let's say he has an 80% of what Jefferson did, plus Tyler Boyd, who I think we all really like. And I really like T. Higgins, too, as a third guy. Mix it, and then that's bad. I was going to say Mixon, as in Mixon, Joe Mixon as the running back. Like, Mixon's awesome.
Yeah,
Not a great dude. Great football player, though. And Burrow should naturally take another step. So if he can stay upright, big if, I suppose, based on, I know that was their big thing. They didn't take the tackle that went to Detroit, right, Sewell? But I think they're going to be fun. I do. At the least, I think they're going to be fun. I don't know where you guys are at with that.
Yeah, they do. So Eugene in the comments here, which is true, like his O-line did him no favors, obviously talking about Joe Burrow. And that's coming in on Facebook, that message. So that's true. And there was tons of debate. Are they going to go Penei Sewell in the draft, or are they going to go Jamar Chase? I had him taking Chase, as did many people. Like the talent that Jamar Chase possesses, like you guys have heard me enough talk about it. So like I love Jamar Chase. I think he is absolutely going to have the potential to impact the game in a Justin Jefferson type of way in his first year. I'm with you, Scott. I love the combo of Chase, Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. I think that's has a potential. They made my top 10. I think they came in at like 6 on my top receiving groups in the league. So yeah, it's very good. And then in terms, just to answer Eugene's, or to address, hit on what Eugene's talking about with the offensive line. I mean, they got 3 high picks now. Their left tackle, Jonah Williams, right guard, Jackson Carman, who's a rookie, and then they got Riley Reif at right tackle. So they've got the bookends on the offensive side of the ball, which I think is going to be big. So it's not like there's not worse offensive lines out there. I think Chase was the right call. And like you said, they're going to have to outscore people. They're going to have to embrace that mentality. They got the head coach who's an offensive guy to do it. So, let's sling the rock and see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's like the thing that like sticks out for me is their O-line didn't do them any favors last year, but Jonah Williams went down. They didn't have him as the year was closing out. So not having him, I think the decision to take Jamar Chase was obviously being like, okay, we got Jonah Williams coming back. We can address this in free agency as well, and we can get a pick in the second round for on the O-line as well, which is what they did. And I think the pick Jackson Carman out of Clemson, like a lot of people are fairly high on him and seeing if he's going to be able to contribute right away. But they also got Riley Reif for like a pretty low price off of the Vikings. And I think Brandon Thorne, I was looking at the tweets, like he was a fan of that signing, basically saying that seeing Riley Reif play at right tackle would probably be the most optimal for his career at this point, and that's where he liked him most. So Brandon Thorne, kind of like our offensive line guru whisperer. So
gotta be he's the best in the game. So you gotta consult his thoughts. He's like first guy I look at every time big O line change or what happens.
I've been picking that up from you. Like now when I'm going through these rosters, I'll see like a big signing or a name that's recognizable to me, and I'll just type in Riley Reif, Brandon Thorne behind and see if there's any tweets that came up from him, because he's got a really good opinion and he really goes through his stuff. So yeah, big shout out to him. But yeah, they the thing that sticks out to me when you look at their roster though is that they just don't have the depth, and like it's the same problem they had last year, whereas like a few starters goes down and they're completely in the tank just because they don't have anyone that can really play behind them. So I don't know, getting Joe Mixon back from injury as well this year. So I think we're all pretty big fans of him as a football player and what he can mean for that offense. But Zach Taylor's just got to get him involved. Like I was looking at their stats, and Zach Taylor, just over the first 2 years of his career, below league average in carries per game and a below league average of targets for running backs a game. Only about 6 targets a game for a running back. So you've got a weapon like Joe Mixon, who is arguably their most polished offensive player. You got to take advantage of that and get him involved as much as you can. That's going to be the key to if they're going to turn a corner this year for me.
Yeah, and like we talked about last week, like if you're not going to throw the ball to your running back who can catch the ball, you're just kind of giving away what you do. Like you're just making it easier to defend.
Yeah, I wonder if a little bit of that is because they've been down so much.
Yeah.
So they're trying to sling it a bit, but I think that's a good point though. But like for sure, you got to think getting the ball out of Burrow's hands, and not just to anyone, but to someone as dynamic as Mixon. Like that's not just smart. That is necessary to have a good offense, right? That's required. So, I like this division. Sorry, before we get into this, might be my most the division I'm most interested in watching throughout the years, or throughout this season. The combination of all the quarterbacks, 3 playoff teams from last year. Like, there's a lot going on here, and I'm looking forward to watch Cincy play, that is the first time I've ever said that. Like,
and I know like this might upset people in here. Well, I'm not saying it's a fact, but they are undoubtedly, like, this division, the AFC North, like the rivalries that exist there are as vicious as any that do in the NFL.
Yeah, they're great.
I think back to like the Palomalu, Antonio Brown playing the Bengals in like those days, and just the
Montez Burfict hit, and I think the big thing is like Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Cleveland, like fans can drive, and it's like it's not far, right? So you can bring fans to games, which is such a huge difference, and it makes such a huge difference for the in the atmosphere in the actual stadiums, right? So I think that matters. Anyway,
my memory of like watching all of those games between like the Steelers and the Bengals was just like, it looks like such a hostile, like crazy environment, but like the elements of them were always like, I'm so glad I'm not outside watching that football game right now. Like it looks awful, but
gray, always about to rain, or it's true. It's got a distinct kind of tableau or something like that in the it's
everyone that's there is diehard. They're ready to fight. Like throw, like, even spilling a drink on someone is just like not acceptable.
Yeah, they throw beers at players, bottles of beer in Cleveland. And Cap, what you're saying, like you mentioned, part of the intrigue of this division is the quarterback position. Like, I couldn't agree more. Like, there are question marks related to each quarterback, but each of them does have a high ceiling. Like, I know saying Big Ben's name, but like he could still, if he's healthy or whatever with those weapons, he could still light it up. But
they're all different.
Yeah, they are all very different, but effective, and could be the quarterback of a winning team.
Yeah.
So, anything else we want to hit on as it relates to this team, gentlemen, before we transition to the Steelers? Maybe, I guess it's worth mentioning Trey Hendrickson, formerly of the New Orleans Saints, as most of our audience is well aware. He signed a 4-year, $60 million deal coming from the Saints, coming off his 13.5 sack season.
Wow.
He was great last year. He was fantastic, but I do think that's an overpay. I think I would want to see more from him. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a big bet. That defense was improving, but I think when they lost Carl Lawson, they just you panic. I think it became apparent that Carl Lawson wasn't going to be there. But I was going to say, like, the last thing I would say about this team is that keep an eye on their defense. Like, they were trending in the right direction as the season went on. Safety Von Bell I really liked. He was graded top 5 safety by PFF, and Jermaine Pratt as well was one of the best linebackers in coverage as the year closed out too. So
Bell's a Buckeye, right? Cap, you probably know him well.
Von Bell is, for sure. So is every other defensive back that's been drafted in the last 10 years, it seems like. But Bo, couldn't agree more. If they can somehow cobble together like the 18th best defense in the league, I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, just because I think there's enough quality teams in the AFC, but I think they can at least be fighting for a spot in week 15 and 16, which is a huge step up, and it's a necessary step if you're going to get there, right? Like, it's not easy. It's very difficult to climb 4 or 5 teams in the AFC standings to actually get one of those spots, right? So, and I think if they finish 9 and 8, I really think that's a great year for them, especially considering, like we said, they have 6 games against playoff quality competition for sure. Now, I don't know who you want to get to next. I have thoughts on Pittsburgh with regards to the playoffs, but I think that's totally fair.
The thing with like the Bengals is just, like I said, their depth is the thing that sticks out. As soon as you start looking at their depth chart, you're just like, oh, they're like one position. They're literally a one-man position. Every position basically. So
for sure. Sorry, Bob. And they didn't kill their draft either. Is all I was gonna say. Like it's fine. Like obviously, I love the Jamar Chase pick at 5. They got an offensive guard who you mentioned, Jackson Carmen, and I like Joseph Osai, the edge rusher out of Texas, in the 3rd round. But they just have they really do lack depth, like you're saying, and plenty of holes to fill still. I think
they're gonna need some injury luck then, because they're gonna need the starters to play a ton of snaps, right?
I said that their ceiling would probably be like 8 and 9. Like realistically, that in that division, it's just going to be so tough for them to get a winning record.
Yeah, I think that's 8, 9, but I think it's doable, and I think they would have to count that as a win. So
yeah, absolutely.
So for them to do well, or to have a shot anywhere close to the postseason, obviously someone else needs to stumble in this division. I want to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers because based on Big Ben's status, I do think there is the potential for that to happen if something were to happen to him. I mean, obviously, they have an elite defense and a ton of weapons on offense with their receiver group, and then you throw Najee Harris into the mix. Consistent coaching. Like, Tomlin's been incredibly successful over the course of his career. I'm pretty sure he's been there longer than Cowher now, which is wild.
Yeah.
I think I read that somewhere, so maybe someone can fact check me on that.
I could check, but he's been there for 14 years. Never had a losing record in those 14 years. He's had 3 8-8 seasons, but yeah, he's been there for a long time. It surprised me too when I looked at it.
Crazy. And like when I say elite defense, I mean they were 3rd against the pass, 11th against the run. So overall, they had the 3rd best defense last season. They didn't have any running game, but again, they addressed that with the running back position. I think there's concerns about the offensive line. It's not what it used to be. And that's going to be a big issue, especially when you have a big, who was once, his defining feature was you couldn't bring him down, Big Ben, but I feel like he's far more vulnerable now. And then the crickety nature of his right shoulder is as concerning, if not more than that.
I think he's washed, man. I do. Like, unbelievable career, but those last 2 months of the season were so telling. Like, it looks so laborious for him to just throw the ball to the sideline or him to get the ball down the field. Like, I don't know. And then you have to deal with the potential awkward transition to a new, like to Rudolph or whoever wins the backup job. I assume it would be Mason Rudolph if Ben gets hurt or he struggles early. To me, there's just a lot of avenues to them not having a good season. I'm also considerably down on Tomlin. I just don't think he's that good of a coach. His record speaks for itself. So, like, if the argument is just like, yeah, look at the record, worst individual season record is 8-8. Of course, hey, that's fantastic, and a lot of coaches would like to have that on their resume. But in-game decisions, I don't think he's very good at all. And I got a low. I'm looking at like a 7-10 type of scenario for Pittsburgh this year. I just don't see it.
So I share your concerns about their performance this year. I think a lot of people used to critique Andy Reid for his in-game decisions as well, but I still think like his record speaks for itself. And I think in the big picture, it's hard for me to criticize Tomlin. It's pretty easy to like not micromanage, but micro-observe coaching decisions. But like that's insane to not have a losing season. Like, what was that? His worst season is 8-8 in 14 years.
He did it 3 times, but 14 years. No
like
losing. No
and Big Ben's
records.
good, but it's not like that's Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers running the offense. So it's like
Yeah.
they're just covering up the head coach's flaws. But what was I gonna say? I do feel so. I feel like Pittsburgh. It's almost like they had two years last year, right? They started the season like
Yeah.
what 8-0 or something.
11-0.
11-0.
Oh, 11-0.
And finished 12-4.
Right. So I think
And
I think the end of the season.
Sorry, Colin. The one win in those was like a miracle comeback that the Colts absolutely gifted them. Like they should have lost the last 5 games. Sorry, go ahead.
That's a valid point. Sorry, we're all jumping all over to each other right now, but like that 11-0 was really like 9-0 too. Like they had some pretty close wins. I remember even having money on those last 2 weeks where they were undefeated, just being like, no, there's no way this is going to keep going. But
they were pretenders.
11-0 was probably like 9-0 really.
It just didn't seem real. So I think they are. What I'm getting at is I think they're closer to what they were at the end of the year than they were at the beginning of the year.
That's exactly what I think.
Yeah.
To be fair, like to play devil's advocate, they lost a lot of guys coming down that stretch too on their defense, especially, which got a lot of teams back into games that Pittsburgh defense was better at closing out for them at the start of the year. Trey Edmonds went down, Devin Bush went down, Bud Dupree went down.
They lost Dupree, right?
Yeah.
All 3 of them blue chip starters for them. So
Yeah.
It really went on to like TJ Watt just holding them above water basically. But that front 7 is the thing, like absolutely to me is like their undeniable strength of this team to me.
Yeah, and Dupree's in Tennessee now, by the way. So.
Yeah, I could jump through like they lost Dupree, they lost Matt Filer on their offensive line, and Mike Hilton actually went from Pittsburgh to the Bengals. So and he's a cornerback for them. We love when your player decides to go to your division rival. So like to me, like they lost 3 guys. The only person they picked up in free agency is Joe Haig, who most famously for Bucs fans dropped your the Super Bowl touchdown that you probably didn't actually need, but at the moment I think it was like 7-3 or something like that in the game, and you guys he dropped the pass. Didn't feel like the end of the world though, but
if anyone is touting Joe Haig as a free agent acquisition, then your franchise is in trouble.
He's literally the only person that they brought in basically to me that played any snaps last year.
Yeah, like respect to Joe Haig. He's a solid like swing lineman, like who can fill in a pinch. But my God, was I nervous when he was having to do so.
So I think so much of it is on how much gas Roethlisberger has, right? Like, once again, not to be reductive, that it comes down to the quarterback, but if he can't get the ball to these receivers, like, I don't know. It just looked so hard for him at the end of the year. Maybe he was hurt, and the offseason is the cure for what ails him, and he's going to look rejuvenated. But he's a thick boy, man. Like a ton of C's in that thick. I don't see him locking in and coming in in the best shape of his career in the last 6 or 7 years or anything like that. It's like I think we're gonna know right away he either has it or he doesn't, and I'm betting towards he doesn't have it. And I don't know where you guys are on Mason Rudolph, but just eminently average to me. Like I don't see him doing enough for them to win at all. I don't know.
It feels like a legacy favor that he's still their quarterback. Like they just don't want to do it, because I totally agree. My eyes are telling me the exact same thing as you, Cap. Like I wouldn't trust Big Ben at all. Like think of that. You're right. He looks awful. He can barely move out there. He doesn't even look like the same guy as he once was. Like at one point his stature was an attribute. For a while it was him being that thick boy, but
yeah.
Like I'm sorry, but like obviously he's not putting in the work in the offseason to get his ass in shape as he gets older.
No.
And it's showing on the field. And he has these great receivers who, like, of course he can get the ball, but a lot of their plays are these short passes because they just abandon the run completely too, right? He's throwing the ball, dink and dunk 7 yards, and then the receivers do the work.
Don't you think there's never been a quarterback who's ever had a stat line of 34 for 57, for 400 yards in a loss than Big Ben, because they just have to chuck it and he can only throw the ball so far. Like, I feel like he's got games with just insane pass attempts. It's probably isn't good for his arm in a certain situation, right? Like, it's hard to throw that many times.
Yeah. I think like the thing with Ben is just he's had full reign of that offense for so long, and they just got Matt Canada. Matt Canada is like their quarterbacks coach last year, got promoted to offensive coordinator, and he's basically been in the media saying like we're doing whatever Ben wants this year. So it kind of like when I think about the Steelers, it feels like a director, like a movie director who's had like 4 or 5 blockbusters, and now he's like gearing up for a sitcom, and he's just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna get the same guy, and he's gonna play the lead, and I just don't have to worry about any scene that he's in, and now like that's just how they do it. But I don't know, like the thing with the Steelers is just they're gonna be whatever Ben decides they're gonna be, and it's not totally up to Ben. Like it's whatever Ben's body decides the Steelers are gonna be, basically.
Yeah.
The only thing that you need to bring up, because it doesn't seem to happen as much anymore, but it is still very possible to break your bread on the defensive side of the ball, and they have a nice looking defense still. I mean, like, that secondary looks phenomenal. Devin Bush, I love Scott for you. I love Devin Bush.
Yeah,
he's awesome.
Maybe my favorite Michigan player in the last 10 years. Like,
he's an animal.
He's just awesome. So good. He's just so good.
He is like, for being Devin White's younger brother, like he holds his own, like for being the baby brother of that Devin family.
Excuse?
They're buddies. We shouldn't start a rivalry between us because they respect each other's games a lot. Devin Bush called him the best linebacker in the league on social media in the last week or two.
You mean Devin White said that?
No, Devin Bush said that about.
That was so nice of Devin White to say that about the other Devin, the Ann Arbor Devin. That was cool. All right, so who's next?
The only question,
Cedar is next because he says Devin Bush is the second best Devin. See, poor Cap is at a disadvantage. We couldn't even have a debate about this in this forum. It would be too advantageous for me.
Oh my goodness! It's always me, Cedar. It's always me, Cedar, with the Michigan Commander. It's like clockwork on this thing. Okay, pal. Like, come on, no, that's actually fair. Obviously, that's fair. I don't want to hear it though.
They're both great. They're both great players. That's all that matters.
They're both great.
Devin Bush is sick, and I think he's fantastic. And then Minkah Fitzpatrick. They obviously have T.J. Watt. Now, I want to say something. I don't want this to be. I like T.J. Watt a lot. I think he is elite, but I also think he's getting a little too much love as an individual player. And we'll see. Like, his numbers speak for themselves. He's highly productive, but I think. Between, for example, him and Bud Dupree, and Bud Dupree is now gone. I think Bud Dupree wasn't getting enough share of the credit that those edge rushers were the problems they were causing for other teams. And I think it's going to be harder for TJ to dominate as much without Bud Dupree coming off the other edge.
Yeah, it's all connected.
I'm going the other way on that one, man. I think Bud Dupree is going to have a tough time in Tennessee without TJ Watt on the other side.
Well, both things could be true, no?
I just think that the Steelers have the front seven to absorb a Bud Dupree leaving, whereas I don't think the Titans have the front seven for Bud Dupree to shine.
It's getting there.
Well, we'll see.
Their defensive front's looking okay, but we don't want to talk more about the AFC South right now.
Yeah, true.
The Steelers have a really good defense with tons of good players all over the field. So, and they're obviously well coached up and play in a scheme that works for them. So,
yeah.
The thing also I'll jump on here, like Alex Villanueva or Alejandro Villanueva.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah.
Gone to the Ravens, gone in division. And that offensive line, like we talked about, was not good last year. And they got old so quickly. Marquise Pouncey's just retired all of a sudden. They're like that offensive line, they did not address it in the way that they should have.
They should have been like the Chiefs. Sorry, Bo. They should have been like the Chiefs. Like I hate to say it, but the Chiefs just hammered on their biggest need, and we're not going to let that be the reason why they don't have a chance to avenge last year's Super Bowl defeat.
And I'm shocked we've gotten this far without Scott going on a tirade about Najee Harris, but the fact that you address your running back in the first round and then you don't address your offensive line until the fourth round.
Yeah.
Third round they did. They got a guard out of Illinois in their third round. But you do not have the depth to be taking a running back in the first round if you are the Steelers, is the way that I looked at it. Even though I love Najee Harris, I hope that he's good. A lot of people think he's going to be Le'Veon Bell reincarnated for them, but Le'Veon Bell had an awesome offensive line when he was there too.
Yeah, it's pretty lofty to say that. Like, Le'Veon was absolutely insane statistically, obviously, for them. Pouncey and Villanueva are as synonymous in some ways with the Pittsburgh offense as Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
You know, like they were there for so long, and it was like, oh, file it away. Pittsburgh's gonna have a good line, right? And that's obviously very much up for debate as of now. We'll see what happens. The Najee Harris thing, I think he's gonna be good. Like that's not the issue I have. I think he's really good, and I think hopefully they can use him well. They definitely had other things to address, and of course I wouldn't have taken him in the first round. But I'm also excited to watch him play. Like he's unreal to watch. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, he's not going to be running behind the same guys that Bell did. That's for sure.
Yeah, and Le'Veon Bell, I guess I get maybe I'm forgetting how dynamic of a runner he was.
He was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Like, and I'm aware how unbelievable Le'Veon was too, but he was such an elite wide receiver as a running back too. Najee Harris is a capable, effective receiver as a running back, but let's not pretend like that comparison seems like a stretch to me because of the receiving capability. Najee Harris maybe will have a longer sustained run as like an elite runner, but I don't know. Maybe he can develop into that, but I'm just saying it's pretty lofty to throw that name out there.
Yeah, maybe it's just out of convenience, and statistically they could be similar, but like I don't like. You think about Le'Veon Bell, you think about him literally waiting behind the line of scrimmage, picking his spots, picking his holes to go through, like no rush and just churning out 6 yards, churning out 8. Right, like. Harris is an absolute freight train, so I don't know. Like
exactly, he's seeking out contact at the end of runs too. Like he's
literally completely different players, but we'll see. He's guys to watch. As much as I hated the pick, Harris is my guy to watch for Pittsburgh. So
yeah, definitely for me too. That's like when I was looking at their key players, it was Najee Harris and Alex Highsmith because he's going to be filling in for Bud Dupree. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go behind Najee Harris being one of their elite plays. But we haven't talked about their wide receivers, too. Like, we got to get in that. Like, Chase Claypool, I hope that he's back and being, like, a number one receiver for them. Juju's back. They re-signed him for a pretty low price tag as well. And,
1 year deal, right? Wasn't there a 1 year deal?
I'm pretty
was
sure,
it $8 million? Did I see that right?
I think so, but I don't like it's that $8 million in the NFL could be like $850 an hour too.
Who knows? Yeah. I think we didn't mention him just because it was like, Juju and Claypool are really good. Yeah. But you're right, Bo. They deserve some shine. They're fantastic. How good was Claypool, man? Oh my goodness! Just immediately too, like immediately.
Yeah, it makes you like you're kind of fearful maybe at it being a flash in the pan, but it doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like it because he's so built to affect the game in a number of ways. Like he could be just strictly a red zone guy, but he's a big play guy. And if he can kind of develop that reliable over the middle receiving threat aspect of his game a little bit more, he could be a serious he could really vault up the wide receiver ranks throughout the league even within a couple years. And don't forget about Deontay Johnson, obviously.
Yeah, I like him.
They have great receiver depth. Shit, who's the other guy off the bench, Bo? James Washington?
James Washington.
James Washington.
He's never done anything.
No, but he has he's solid enough to slide in there.
He's as talented as any fourth receiver in the league. There's no doubt about that. But I feel like he's got a little bit of the John Ross in Cincy syndrome where it's hard to keep him on the field. And once just a phenomenal college player. I think he played with Mason Rudolph at Oklahoma State, actually. But we just haven't. Sorry, I shouldn't say that he's been terrible. He hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been as good as I think a lot of people would have guessed. But definitely adds to their depth, so it makes sense.
Yeah. I trust their front office evaluating wide receivers more than literally any other team.
Extremely fair. Yeah. Extremely fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you got that kind of depth. You that's the hardest thing to do, right? It's because you drafted a bunch of good guys or acquired them one way or another.
Last thing I'll add, guys, if I can, over/under for Pittsburgh wins is 8.5. So literally a 500 season, right? that's where
You're going to sweat that the entire year, probably.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that
Yeah.
is a fair number. That's calling them, predicting them to not be a playoff team, to not win that division.
Yeah.
That's where I think sorry not to speak for you guys, but I think we're all falling in that same kind of 7, 8, 9 win bucket for them. I don't know about. I mean, I am for
Yeah.
sure.
I got two teams I'm a hell of a lot more confident in this division. That's for sure.
Yeah, we're about to get to the heavy hitters. I wouldn't be surprised to see them just completely mail in this year and end up with a top 5 pick, and they pick up some quarterback in this draft and hail him as the next Ben or whatever. Even if he doesn't play like that, just their long-term answer in this next draft is probably going to be at quarterback.
Me Cedar on Facebook. He says, I got to say I'm proud of Carl Nassib. He was a class act when I met him. I'm proud he felt secure enough to come out today. Right on, me Cedar. I know that Scott Capron here is pleased you're not slandering Michigan alumni.
All right, me Cedar, you're back in my good books. That's, good call. Totally agree. And
Yeah.
he also donated $100,000 to the Trevor Project,
Yeah.
a suicide prevention organization for LGBTQ youth. That's fantastic.
What an important spokesperson for the LGBTQ community.
LGBTQ community.
Thank you. To have someone like that in the NFL, like that, I think now he's going to have a huge role for that community, and just the macho nature of football, I think it's just is really cool.
It's a heavy weight to put on your shoulders, but he seems built for it.
Yeah. He's always been a high character dude. I remember, I really got when he was in Cleveland watching Hard Knocks, and then they ended up cutting him on during Hard Knocks, and he joined the Bucs. So I got a pretty good sense for his character. He seemed like a great teammate. Fun guy dealing with the media too. All right. So Bo talked about the heavy hitters. It is now our turn to talk about the heavy hitters as a group. I want to talk about the Browns before we get to the Ravens. So let's talk about the Cleveland Browns coming off of their best season in a while, I believe. 11-5. They finished third in the AFC North last year. They lost in the divisional round to the Chiefs. They only lost by 5. That was 22-17 for the Chiefs.
What a game.
Yeah.
Bo, I'm wondering, that was the game the Nick Chubb bet that we talked about last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
never cash out. Never.
Yeah. I mean, I think anyone who has been listening to our podcast will know that because throughout our draft coverage, I was praising the job they did in the NFL draft because I just love the value they got, especially in their first few picks. And then in doing that, in breaking that down, it really opened my eyes to how strong of a roster the Browns have all over the place, both sides of the ball. It is just incredibly deep, and it is just jam-packed with well-rounded starters. High-quality starters all over the field, and a good combination of youth and leadership as well, veteran leadership, and big-time players at important positions. For me, the big question is Baker. I mean, former number 1 overall pick, a stud in college eventually when he found his spot. So, Baker's got talent, but seeing him in the NFL, I think I was big on Baker coming out of college. Let me put it this way. All right, I really like Baker. But I've if anything lost a little bit of confidence in some ways in watching him play. I found he's been more erratic than I expected. I think Stefanski's a great coach for him, and it's nice for him to have some stability there with an offensive-minded head coach and play caller. But I really think I want that. I want to the sky is the limit. If Baker performs this year, this team is set up so well. They have constructed this roster so well.
Yeah,
they could be absolutely lethal.
And I also think last year winning a playoff game, especially over Pittsburgh and dismantling them the way they did, went a long way in just kind of debunking the Browns always suck narrative a little bit. I think everyone knew the roster was good and they were undeniably talented, but it's but it's the Browns. Let's see them actually do it. And they only won 1 playoff game, but that's still a big step. And that's a big thing just to prove any sort of legitimacy and for Baker to get the win. They played Kansas City, super tough, obviously. Great record in the regular season, 11-5. I think a little bit of the stigma of like Brown's gonna Brown, right? Is like I think last season did a huge, like it just helped so much in that way, which I think will really kind of like monkey off the back type of scenario going forward this year. Obviously, they played the game of the regular season that Monday nighter against Baltimore, like by far the most entertaining game. Kind of reminded me of that Rams Chiefs, masterpiece from 2 or 3 years ago, right? On Monday night when it was like 59-56. So I really like them. And if you like the talent and you're not super worried about, them doing what they always do, not an unreasonable choice to win this division. That's for sure.
Yeah, like it's all true. I just want to specifically hit on some of the names that I loved in their draft. There's 4 players in particular. Round 1, Greg Newsome, cornerback out of Northwestern. I talked a bunch about him. I was early in the draft process. I was praying he would fall to the Bucs because it was debatable at that point, but it obviously didn't happen. And then they got a guy Bowden and I have talked about at length, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who is like a hybrid linebacker out of Notre Dame, also known as JOK for phonetic pronunciation, easy to say.
I actually saw Dominic Foxworth talking about him. He said that his nickname at Notre Dame was Woo.
Oh, so yeah,
I even like that better than JOK.
Yeah, Woo's great.
Woo.
I wish we had Woo earlier in our process. So him going like towards the bottom half or like at least the middle of the second round is absolutely crazy. He was potentially like a top 20 guy in the draft. So you got just to add Newsome and him to the defensive side of the ball is insane. And then they had a couple nice value picks on the offensive side of the ball. Round 3, Anthony Schwartz, wide receiver out of Auburn. Absolute burner, stupid fast, but he's much more than that. He's a good receiver. And then they got Demetric Felton in the 6th round, who's another guy who I think a lot of Bucs fans had their eyes on coming out of UCLA, that hybrid player. He'll assume some return duties. So they've just done an amazing job of finding guys in the draft who they can slide into this team that they've built already. It just really opened my eyes to how diverse they could be on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, when I was prepping for this, the Browns are an interesting case, right? So they, by DVOA, they're ranked 9th offensively last year. But the Football Outsiders also had them facing the easiest defensive schedule. So that should come around this year as well, too. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them regress. But the same thing as you is like you look at their roster, and it's just so deep. It's not even that it's so deep. It's like the guys up front are like game breakers. Like Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. coming back. Like to be 9th in the NFL without your number 1 wide receiver just speaks to how explosive that offense could be. So yeah, I want to see them do it. But I'm definitely extremely excited about what they could be on offense. I think defensively, even though they killed the draft with Newsome and JOK in their first 2 picks, and key additions from a free agency standpoint, Troy Hill and John Johnson coming from the Rams, Malik Jackson, underrated pass rusher from the Eagles in the middle of the line. And then they also got Jadeveon Clowney coming off the edge, who's just going to spell Myles Garrett. And like they're deep defensively from a name perspective, but they were 25th in defensively last year, so those were a lot of guys, a lot of key pieces to integrate in their first year too into their scheme. So I'll be interested to see how they turn out defensively, because I love the talent that's on that side of the ball. Obviously, we haven't even talked about Myles Garrett yet, and I think he's probably the best pass rusher in the game on the outside. But yeah, I'm interested to see what they can do from a defensive standpoint, because I think that's the thing that's going to set them apart from where they were last year.
They lost Sheldon Richardson too, and Olivier Vernon, I guess, is still unsigned. It's still UFA, but Vernon's well past his prime, clearly. So
he graded well. From PFF said that he graded pretty well last year, and he was their second best pass rusher last year. But
is that right? Yeah,
he was like a 70 or something like that.
they also have a strong offensive line and probably what I would call the best running back tandem in football on one team when you combine Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. The Thunder and Lightning, they're both Thunder, they're both Lightning. Like
they're unreal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's just stupid, those two together. But yeah, like Wyatt Teller, their right guard. They got Wyatt Teller at right guard, Jack Conklin at right tackle. And then on the left side, they got Bitonio at guard, Joel Bitonio, and Jedrick Wills, their first round pick in the 2020 draft at left tackle. Like their offensive line is right up there with the Bucs. It's insane. Wyatt Teller, who was kind of written off by the Bills, he I believe like he was graded as the most effective run blocking guard in football opposite Quentin Nelson. So that's just insane. So I mean they've done really well in the personnel department. And
they have like I think that's the thing that makes you nervous about whatever you feel about Baker. It's like he has all of the tools or all of the weaponry to excel this year.
At his disposal, right? Well, yeah,
absolutely. Like even if you don't have it going, you can manage a game through the run game and get your pass game going in the second half or something like that. You can figure out a way to win games if you're Baker Mayfield, just checking out of plays, and if you can just really think through the game. I think the big question mark is for me, like a key player for me to watch this year is Odell. Like, what are you getting? Because like what we saw from him last year was not pretty. Like it felt like Baker was almost getting bullied at points of the year, just trying to force the ball over to Odell just because he wants to keep him happy. So it's going to be super tough.
What if Odell's just like a top 5 receiver again, right? Like, I don't know. Is anyone ruling that out? He's unbelievable. And like,
it's more about the chemistry with him and Baker. It's more about Baker almost. Like, I don't know. Like we've talked about it. Sorry, Scott. I just
no.
Remember we talked a lot about, because in my opinion, my eye test has told me that Baker is less comfortable when Odell was on the field, at least based on how he played, almost like he was nervous trying to get him his touches. Hopefully Baker has gotten past that mentally and can just continue to spread it around, because Stefanski's offense has impressed me in terms of how they mix run and pass, like how they utilize those weapons in the run game. And it makes life a lot easier on the receivers. And they really didn't miss a beat when Odell went back. And I don't view that, when Odell got hurt. I don't think that's an indictment on Odell at all. I think it's just, effective play calling and really balanced offense.
Yeah.
So please continue, Scott, because I totally agree about Odell. I think, like he's still Odell.
Yeah, and like, hey, obviously he's a receiver, so it's quarterback dependent on what he does, right? So, to me, Baker, it's just like his bad is like, wow, it's bad. So if we can just raise his floor, so his worst game is still serviceable, which it needs to be if he's going to be, the quarterback on a Super Bowl contender, then they're going to be really good. Because we all know Baker's good is good, and like he can get outside of the pocket and create, and obviously he has the guys to throw to. It just, we got to avoid those terrible games, those terrible back-breaking picks that he's been known to throw, right? So he's got Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry. Like, that's pretty good. I love Landry. I've always loved Landry. I don't know. I just love the way he plays. I think he can do a little bit of everything as like a slot guy, or if you want to put him outside, he's tough as anything. I love him.
You're talking about Jarvis Landry?
Yeah, sorry. Talking about Landry now.
Landry, like, that's like, it's like Godwin level hands, right? Like it's just, I feel like he's such a sure catch. Every time he's out there.
Such a steady presence too. Like Landry, all indications to me are he's just such a good locker room guy. Like I've never heard a complaint out of him. Puts his head down. Like kind of the opposite of Odell, which is ironic just based on their relationship because of I don't know how much he doesn't need the ball. And Bo, like in our player props, like I had a nice run. I think we both did on Jarvis Landry as the season was winding down and into the postseason. His over/under catches was too low the whole time. It was like 3.5. Even when it was 4.5, I was like, "There's no Odell there. They have to throw the ball." And he hit the over the vast majority of the time. So
I'm with you on that.
But do you guys see what I mean? Like if Baker's floor is higher, like. That's
it's
like the determining thing for their whole season.
Yeah,
Yes.
You just don't want his floor to be Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's like going in between Carson Wentz and like a poor man's Russell Wilson.
That's
and it's just
okay.
like you can't build a winning team off of that if you don't know who you're getting each time.
So when I was talking there, Bo, I was literally picturing Wentz last year, and then thinking like, oh, Baker had some Wentsy games.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, okay, no way. Like, no,
Totally.
can't. Because we saw in that article, I think that Boomer, well, one of you two sent it to the three of us, that Wentz was just the worst quarterback in the league last year in like 7 of 10 different types of throws, right?
Yeah.
And I honestly thought Mayfield had some games like that. So, sorry, beating a dead horse here, but if his worst game is closer to average, like league average, then I sky's the limit for them. Sky's the limit.
Yeah, because when he's playing well, he's obviously super effective, and that's when his confidence gets going. So I totally agree. I think worst case, I hate to say it, but worst case, he is Wentz. He plays Wentsy, as Cap says. So yeah, absolutely love the way the team's built. Trust in leadership is in place from the coach to the front office. It's all on Baker to execute. That was kind of my final notes there. So it seems to be the theme of what we all feel.
Yeah,
this is like another one of those teams where it's pretty easy to feel. You could see yourself as a Bucs fan running into them in the Super Bowl at some point.
I was gonna tell Scott not to look at the comments, but I just pulled it up because.
Oh, I'm looking at it, and I've thought about it. That was the first when I heard Clowney's name. I pictured the hit. It's Vincent Smith, the running back, getting his head popped off, and then Clowney reaching for the ball like a grizzly bear.
That's the craziest tackling. One of the crazier tackling highlights that I've seen. So yeah, me Cedar is back up here trolling Scott Capron, the diehard Michigan fan, saying Clowney made his career off one hit against some scrub maize and blue team up in Ann Arbor. So got another Michigan hit in there, kicking the poor guy while he's down.
Just trying to get me fired up. You know, like we're nearing the end. We've done 3 of the 4 teams, and now I have to relive that play.
But Scott. At least Harbaugh's brother is a successful coach, because I want to talk about the Baltimore Ravens.
Oh, wow. What a disgusting segue. Yeah, let's talk about them.
Okay, so 11-5, finished second in the division last season. They lost in the divisional round to the Bills, as I know you two remember well. They only put up 3 points, lost 17-3 to the Bills in that game. Anything jump out at you guys from that game? From last season? Is there any
just Lamar's inability to be a threat throwing the ball at all? Like 3 points. I know it was cold, Buffalo, blah blah blah. Baltimore plays in the cold. They were also pretty inept actually the week before. Against Tennessee. I think that game was like 20-17. They didn't do much. As much as I love Lamar, I think good teams can actually scout him and defend him, or they can more so than even they did 2 years ago in his in that insane year that he had. That's why I actually have Cleveland ahead of Baltimore. I think Cleveland's offense is tougher to stop. I think there's more you have to worry about, even though in a given game, Lamar might do more insane and get to those 49 points, right? Like I think that's possible, but I just as awesome as he is, I think you can kind of take him out of a game. I think a good coach can anyway.
They're another one of those teams, like the same way I feel about the Saints. You don't want to play Lamar at the start of the season, but I agree with you. Like the game gets harder for Lamar as the season goes along. The more looks you get at Lamar, the more tape you have on him, it seems like it gets a little bit harder for him to make plays. Makes me nervous for him, but I'm super high on the Ravens. I would love to see them win this division.
Yeah, I mean, elite weapons in the run game. Obviously, Lamar Jackson is the most dynamic running player in the league, most likely. But I do agree. Yeah. But I do agree that over the course of a game, you might be afraid he's going to bust a couple here and there, but it's pretty straightforward to just contain the run, and you're not really worried about the pass. So you can really stack the box. So I like
throwing to.
Well, so
yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Yeah, I was about to say actually, I thought they had a pretty strong draft, and they drafted in the first round Rashad Bateman, wide receiver out of Minnesota. Bo, I know you're high on him. Like he has all the potential to be like an alpha wide receiver 1 type player, and I think Hollywood Brown's been a disappointment, but I mean, what are you gonna have a 5'6" wide receiver one in the NFL? Like,
Yeah.
I think he's way better suited into a secondary receiver type role, change of pace sort of thing. So Rashad Bateman is big for them to at least limit the excuses. So now he's got another big time receiver potentially who he can throw to on offense, or at least he has one now. Took Jason Owe out of Penn State, edge rusher, Ben Cleveland in the third round, guard out of Georgia, who's a really good player. And then they got Tylan Wallace from Oak State. Tylan Wallace is sick, man. He's
really good.
He's really solid. So that's two receivers they drafted. To refresh your memory, Cap, you're likely familiar with both those players.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying they're coming in depending on rookies, but it does add to the corpse of wide receivers and the amount of weapons. So, like,
I think they kind of are depending on rookies because they haven't had a great guy to throw the ball to. Like, let's face it, it was a lot of Willie Snead and like Mark Andrews, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of Mark. When he drops back, everyone stares at Mark Andrews because you just feel like that's where the ball's going every time. And Lamar, like, surprisingly accurate to Mark Andrews. But I thought that they had a good offseason just in general. Like, we went over their draft, picking up those two wide receivers. I think they're going to be weapons right away. I think Rashad Bateman's like a blue chip player out of the box. But they added Sammy Watkins, who obviously probably not the most injury like, he's pretty injury prone, but if he can stay healthy, that's a big. And I think
that'll be on his tombstone, by the way.
I know, same with John Ross, right?
Yeah.
But the thing with this is that you have Sammy Watkins, you brought in Rashad Bateman, you actually get to play Marquise Brown in the role that he's supposed to play. So it's almost like an addition. What you're going to be getting from Marquise Brown, because it's not the same wide receiver they had the last 2 years with him.
Do they still have that Duvernay?
I think so.
Yeah. I like him.
Yeah.
I like him.
Returning kicks and everything.
Yeah, he can do some stuff. I don't know. I just like we've seen it bogged down. We've seen it bogged down now the last couple of years, and I think the lack of an elite playmaker that allows Lamar to be a little bit less accurate, for example, to just go up and make a play. I think it's really mattered. And by these criticisms are coming from, like, being a Super Bowl contender point of view. I think they're very good. I'm not they're going to make the playoff. They have to me, just as good a chance as anyone to win this division. It's not like that. I'm just saying they're not better than the Chiefs. Like, they are not better than the Chiefs, and they were definitively not better than the Bills last year. Towards the end of the year, anyway, and then it poured out in the playoff game, right? So, like, once again, this is coming from a top tier, upper echelon, look at the team. But hey, if Bateman's is as good as you guys are thinking he's going to be right now, then that is huge. Like, sorry, once again, just because Justin Jefferson last year gave us such a good template as a rookie pass catcher. If it's anything like that, then that's totally different. Then I will, stand corrected, gladly eat the crow on that one. But to me, that's just a big, big ask.
Huge. If I don't disagree with you at all, especially if you're asking him to do it as a rookie, which you're right. Yeah. That is what they're asking to do. So, like, I don't disagree with you.
He has to be good. He has to, like, for them to have a big year, like, Rashad Bateman has to be very good this year.
And having a, like, so they obviously have a ridiculously effective running game, but can that be the only thing to get you there? No, you have to be able to throw the ball in the NFL in order to get over that hump. And I like how you kind of, clarified that we're not criticizing them from the lens of, like, league average, whatever. It's amongst contenders. We're trying to decipher, are they real contenders or not? Yeah. And I just don't see them, like, I'm not willing to bet on Lamar Jackson's arm to make them a better team with how in love I am with the Browns roster. I like the Browns to come out of this division, spoiler.
Yeah.
On top. Sounds like you do too, Cap.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I will, like, Lamar should have more time as well, too, right? We touched on Villanueva. They picked up Kevin Zeitler from the Giants as well, too. So
Ronnie Stanley's coming off injury. All pro.
Yeah, they're good. They're good.
Stanley could be the best tackle in football when healthy, some people think.
Exactly.
Like, I
think all of that, like, just makes the, like, I feel like when we talked about it, when they traded Orlando Brown, I was like, what are you guys doing? But yeah, the thing with that for me is just like it seems like their offensive line should be a little bit better. So Lamar with a little bit extra time, a little bit more defined of a pocket, even though he loves to extend plays and he's more of a threat outside of the pocket. I still think that he can make some things happen, and I just feel like he's due for another one of those huge years where it's just like he's a nightmare every like just keeping defensive coordinators up at night. But yeah, their strength is just the running game and just hoping that they're just gonna just annihilate people on the line.
Yeah.
I love Dobbins. You guys know that. I love J.K. Dobbins. I think he's going to have a huge year this year. But I also I love watching Lamar Jackson.
Oh yeah.
So I love watching him. I love cheering for him. But let me just say, I am appreciative that he's not my team's quarterback, because that would be kind of sketchy when it comes down to it.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately at this point it's a fair criticism. When they lost to the Chargers 3 years ago, that was his first playoff game, and he was getting killed. Even though, whatever, they lost by 6. I think it wasn't crazy. He didn't play great, but then they go 14-2 and they bow out to Tennessee. Then they finally win one last year, but then just are totally non-competitive against Buffalo. I hate to be this guy's oh, it only matters in the playoffs. It only matters in the playoffs. It's that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to peak for the playoffs. You're trying to be as unscoutable as possible come the playoffs, or be able to at least produce multiple looks. And I just don't think good teams are scared of him beating them with his arm anyway. So I'm curious to see if he kind of takes it as more of a challenge to hang in that pocket a little bit more and try to deliver the ball versus, he takes off and runs pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
And no criticism here. He's the best in the world at it, so go do it, and it's worked. That's the thing. I'm actually looking forward to watching him, see if he changes his game, just to try to, help the team, but also kind of prove the haters wrong a little bit.
It seems like he wants to, right?
Yeah, it does.
That's the thing that sticks out to me as this season went on, especially in the postseason. It seemed like he wanted to throw the ball a little bit more.
Yeah.
But they also their wide receivers were awful last year as well too.
Yeah.
They did not have the amount of separation that someone with the accuracy that he has would require from a wide receiver.
That's what holds me back from picking them to really do some special things, like make it to the AFC title game or something like that. I just don't. Hey, if Lamar improves and he's a great passer and an MVP candidate, awesome, because he's an amazing player and there's literally no one more fun to watch. But if he adds that to his game, then that's great. I just don't see it. What do you guys have for their defense?
Well, they have a great defense, a really good defense.
Yeah, going through it, it's
they're top 8 in run and pass. They're the 6th best pass defense, 8th best run D, and 2nd defense overall.
Yeah.
According to Pro Football Reference.
I feel like I've been playing devil advocate this whole time, but I actually think their front 7 doesn't pop off the board for me like it did before.
You hate Jason Owe though, Bo.
I don't hate Jason Owe, but I'm not a believer until I see him do it. When I prefaced my Jason Owe take with unless Baltimore takes him.
You did true. You did do that.
So
you're right.
If anyone's going to coach them up, it'll probably be Baltimore. But I was looking at their pass defense, the pass rush especially, I actually think their secondary is the strength of this defense, which is kind of ironic for the Ravens because I just always think of them going after the ball, going after the quarterback. But their pass rush ranked 18th in the league last year, and even though they blitzed the most, so a lot of it comes down to just thinking that shit, we have
that you, Bo?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Anyways, it's fine.
That
Anyways,
smoke
you
in
guys
the
go.
background is saying something. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, it's good. But yeah, I just think that they're blitzing a ton. That's how they're getting they're getting a lot of their pressure off of their scheme and not so much off of the players that they have up front. I really think they're going to miss Matt Judon as well. I think
good point.
They're hoping that Jason Owe is going to be taking care of that for them. They let go of Yannick Ngakoue too to the Raiders, so I I'm not a huge believer in their pass rush, but I love their secondary. I think that like if Marcus Peters is like one of my key players to watch on this team as well too, along with Hollywood Brown and J.K. Dobbins. But Marcus Peters, just if he's able to even replicate what he had last year, he was really good for them. So I'm not a huge believer in their defense just yet.
I think that's a really astute observation when you really look into it. I got their depth chart up right now, and you're right. Like the names at least don't pop the way that I thought. And you just mentioned two big time pass rushers or presence along the defensive line that have vacated the friendly confines of Baltimore. And don't forget Marlon Humphrey too. Like he's like a top 10 corner in football for sure, if not top 5. Like he's kind of
good. He's so fun to watch. He's so good.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah,
and then they got
why their secondary is basically their pass rush, because they lock up wide receivers, they lock up the threats downfield, and like they gain that extra bit of time that their blitz needs.
Yeah, we'll see what Patrick Queen can do.
Yeah,
they're really high on Patrick Queen too, so we'll see how he progresses.
Down year though last year as well too.
Yeah, but that's a good point. Like the numbers tell you that their defense is elite, but they totally could be poised for a bit of a step back this year. That's good due diligence there, Bo.
It's why I'm a co-host. That's how I got it. It's not all just dressing up and not having your fire alarm going.
That we actually got a fire alarm button, so it means Bo thought he had a hot take. He's just not supposed to push it himself.
Yeah, I mean, I was just like steaming is coming off my head. Like the fire alarm is right there. So
yeah, we might have to disable it, Collin.
Yeah, I thought I could trust you to not, but I'm supposed to push the button, but you just did it to yourself. Anything else you guys want to hit on specifically about the Ravens before we just kind of discuss how we see? I know we've already talked about it. I'm curious to hear. I have a feeling I know where Bo's going to go with this division. But is there anything about the Ravens specifically either of you two guys want to hit on right now?
No,
I think we covered it.
Yeah, and just I want to see if a receiver pops, and I expect a leap from Dobbins. And like a statistical leap because he's really going to be the feature guy, and he's awesome. But I think their ceiling is now dependent on whether or not they can have some game breakers outside, because otherwise, I don't think they're going to be able to score enough when it matters.
Well, and Ken Lamar getting the ball, obviously.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's all tied in, right? So
yeah.
I think we talked about this like when we were just talking about like possible breakout guys, Collin. But like I think their offensive coordinator Greg Roman was talking about how he wants to put out a different scheme for Lamar and just do some things a little bit differently. And like if there is a hot seat for offensive coordinators, Greg Roman's probably on it. And
probably on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that they try to do something differently, because I don't think I guess like everybody's gonna say Lamar is a problem because it's an accuracy thing, but I just have so much faith in him as like a worker and a guy who just absolutely loves football.
Yeah.
That I just feel like he's gonna get better and better. So yeah, you probably have an idea of where I'm going with this division.
He's just one of the most dynamic athletes in the world. So like I love to watch that. In terms of Greg Roman, the interesting thing about the thought that maybe he could be on the hot seat, like his whole MO is run game. Like he used to work in San Fran and in Buffalo, right? And he is a heavy run predicated offensive play caller. So they brought him in to harness or to utilize Lamar Jackson, and then it's like, oh, this isn't working. You're running too much. It's your fault. Like. So I guess it makes sense, though, in that all at the same time that he maybe is feeling the pressure, and that's why he needs to alter his scheme. So we'll see if they're better off with one guy changing his whole philosophy, or if they would have been better just bringing in someone who has a passing mentality in terms of their offense. So, Scotty, you want to hit on any odds related?
Yeah.
Stuff?
So here are the odds for the 4 teams. So Ravens are the favorite at plus 115. So $100 bet would net you $115 profit. Browns plus 166, Steelers plus 320, and then the Bengals down at plus 2,500. So obviously clearly three above the other one here, but I mean, I'm looking at the Browns at plus 166. I would jump on that right now, which I actually am about to do as I look at it. So.
Yeah, I echo that. I think that's really good value for the Browns here, who I like. If it was even odds all across the board, I'd be picking the Browns to win this division. I'm gonna take my chances with Baker because I just think that team, like you said, Scott, they have. It feels like they've conquered the hurdle of being this inept franchise, and it's not even on their radar anymore.
It doesn't.
Their
I
new
haven't heard
team.
one word about that. You know, So
You just don't feel it anymore. So I feel like that's just going to alleviate a lot of additional stress and anxiety. Maybe that helps Baker a lot. Maybe that's all it really is. Who knows? Because he was carrying the weight of the franchise to take him to the next level. He's got them into the playoffs. They won a playoff game. So, I mean,
they competed with Kansas City. They had the lead in the fourth. Like they know, right? Yeah. So
that roster is pretty undeniable too. Like the best version. If you get the best version of all four of these teams, I still think Cleveland's ahead. But it's just a matter if you think the best version of all of them is coming.
For sure. And I just have more like I really like Stefanski. I guess I've been like kind of singing his praises throughout this episode, but that's so huge too. Like it's one thing to have talent, and it's one thing to trust the person who's putting the talent in positions to succeed. And I believe he is doing that, at least on the offensive end. So
wait, hold on. Gun to your head. Would you pick Baker or Lamar to be your quarterback?
Baker.
You have to win one. You have to win a Super Bowl. You have to win one game.
Oh, that's
Tom Brady's just gone down, and you get to pick any. You're not playing the Browns or the Ravens. You're playing the Chiefs again. You have to beat one team.
Well, if it's the Bucs, I got to go Baker. You got to be able to throw the ball with the way our offense is situated. So you just gave me an out when you said it was the Bucs and not just like any team.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say any team. Like, do you trust Baker more than Lamar Jackson?
I know
we're gonna clip this. Go ahead.
Lamar Jackson's ceiling. We have seen his ceiling, in my opinion. Like, I don't think you can just improve as a passer that much. Like, I think he had good enough guys to throw the ball to that he would show us more in the passing game if he had it in him. Whereas Baker's got a lot more to potentially offer because he can throw the ball, and he's not like a pocket passer. He can scramble around and pick up a first down whenever he needs to as well. So I would probably take Baker.
Yeah, fair. It's fair. My thing is just I think that Lamar's ceiling is so repeatable. Like I could see him having like 3 or 4 like the way that Steph Curry just keeps on having MVP years. Like I feel like Lamar's like the way that his skill set is, he's just always going to be he's going to be the fastest guy on every field he's on for the next 3 to 5 years, right?
Those are all regular season MVPs. And I'm honest. Like it bothers me that I'm doing this but it matters. It's like a different sport in the playoffs. Clearly, and like I would begrudgingly pick Baker at this point because we've seen Lamar get shut down. Now we've only seen Baker in a handful of I guess they played similar amount of playoff games at this point, but oh god, that's so tough. That
is a damn good hypothetical.
I guess here's my thing. I might take Lamar to win one game, but I might take Baker to win 4 games. Like, fair. You know what I mean? Like
playoff run, yeah.
Yeah. So
but there's a comment in here too that maybe you should bring up. Like Jackson this is the first time he's gonna have tools. Like this is really the first time that he has like the proper skill players around him. If Rashad Bateman's who I think he is, and Tylan Wallace is who I think he is, and like Sammy Watkins somehow plays like 9 games and is healthy at the end of the year, like this is the first time that he really has a good amount of wide receivers and a good amount of like J.K. Dobbins in his backfield that can take some pressure off of him. Like this is the first time that he really has the tools to put that type of run together and be the best quarterback in the league, not just off of his own skill set.
To me, it's just that he could have better tools. We still have to see it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so Greg Rabluski just says, the tools that, but Jackson has better tools this year, which is true, which you just addressed, Bo. The professor is agreeing with him, and he would prefer to have Lamar Jackson in Tampa than he would Baker Mayfield. Again, that's a really good hypothetical, Bodan, and you kind of like, I got to even stew on that one for a while longer.
Yes.
But yeah, I see the division. I I see the division shaking out: Cleveland, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cincy. That's my 1 through 4. I don't know how you guys have yours.
I'm gonna take a bit of a shot and say Pittsburgh finishes last and Cincy finishes ahead of them.
Right on.
So I'll go Cleveland, Baltimore, Cincy, Pittsburgh.
I hope that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincy, Pittsburgh too. I have a feeling that Steelers just like you don't get by with that type of offensive line, especially not in this division. Like
that is
these guys,
that's a problem for them.
Like the defenses that you're gonna see. Like this is the first time where you're just kind of like, oh, like the Ravens front seven isn't that great, but like they're gonna be good. Like they're gonna be able to scheme it and figure out a way to get to the quarterback. Like they've been doing it for so many years and just replacing it with guys. But this is the first time they don't have the guys, but they still have the scheme.
Interesting. We'll see. This, as Cap said off the start, this is going to be a super fun division to watch. Each team has quarterbacks who have the potential to be very effective, some with better weapons around them than others. Tons of rivalries exist in the AFC North, tons of history. So it will be fun to see. And I do think regardless of what happens with Cincy this year, I do think they are on the come up because, again, you're not going to find a more passionate Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase supporter than me. I love both those players so much. I just can't see their connection not translating to the NFL level. Of course, they'll have to keep Burrow upright, but and then the rest of those teams are pretty, in a similar tier, at least based on last year. So it'll be really fun to see how that shakes out. I just want to thank everyone for joining us who viewed this live and those in the comments, bringing the heat as always. It's been a pleasure. We will be back next Monday at 7 p.m. In the meantime, head over to our YouTube channel at Bucs Banter. Please give us a like or a subscription or anything you can offer because that's what pays the bills up here in the frigid confines of Canada. And yeah, that's about all I got, boys. I don't know if you have any parting words of wisdom you care to share with our listeners.
No, just for the record, it's June and it's hot as hell. So I just want that to be quite clear in case there's any sort of ambiguity going on. It's hot, guys. I'm in shorts, full on shorts. So there we go.
It was 28 here today. So yeah, I don't even know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's hot.
Yeah, I'm just playing with the generic Canadian thing,
Fair enough.
Anyway, thanks for coming.
Not an igloo.
Right. Thanks for coming along. We look forward to hitting you guys up with another episode soon. And until then, take care.
Hey, Banks.